Welcome back to another episode of Raven's Haven's SCP reaction videos. Today, we're going to be reacting to SCP-1919, Hotel of Duplicates.
You hear their footsteps coming down the halls, or are those your own? Can you even tell the difference? You can tell they're getting closer and you can feel the hate, the rage. You turn, shaking, and finally see them standing right in front of you. But in that moment, you might as well be looking into a mirror. And who knows? Perhaps you are. You just don't seem to remember having so many reflections. Have you ever heard the saying, "You are your own worst enemy"? Of course, it isn't usually meant literally, but what if it was? What if you had to fight a monster that was you? All of your flaws are reflected back at you. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your
sounds like
deepest
doppelgangers.
fears with no way to escape except
Doppelgangers, I should say.
Either way, you're not making it out alive. It's just a matter of which version of you survives. But this isn't a thought experiment.
Yeah, this sounds like the legendary doppelgangers that whenever you see a doppelganger of yourself, they usually try and kill you so that way they can take over your life because they resent you or something like that. This kind of sounds like that.
No. According to the findings of the SCP Foundation, it's very much a reality. There is a place where this nightmare comes to life, and it's known as SCP-1919. SCP-1919 is a hotel and converted mansion built in the early 20th century. From the outside, it looks pretty much like it did when it was first built, and it almost looks like a comfortable place to stay, if you ignore the eastern side of the building that has sunk partially into the ground. The inside, however, is a different story, where it's clear the ravages of time have taken their toll. The floorboards and ceilings are rotten,
footprint going up the side,
and the rooms are filled with debris. It's deadly enough to explore
footprints
the hotel
going up
for
the
these
side of the
reasons alone,
freaking wall.
but this is only
That's a red flag right there.
danger for a person inside. In order to determine just how dangerous it is for either one person or group to enter the structure, the SCP Foundation planned a series of research expeditions into the abandoned building, led by Foundation scientist Dr. Lemkowitz. The first expedition seemed relatively normal, at least it did at the start. A 39-year-old Caucasian D-class male, known as D7, was sent into the structure with a camera and a communication system, guided remotely by Dr. Lemkowitz, or Dr. L, and another operative, a former head of the MTF Tau 11 Youth Hostiles, who is referred to in this file only as T11. When he arrived at the building, D7 was unable to get inside through the front door or windows. After several minutes of trial and error, he was finally able to get in through the western entrance. Dr. L picked up a strange, high-pitched whistling noise upon D7's entrance into the building, but it quickly faded away and was disregarded by T11. D7 discovered a torn painting, a portrait of a young woman with red hair. Next to the portrait,
Maybe that buzzing was some sort of anomalous energy signature that was copying whoever goes in, because they ignored it. Sometimes things like that happen. Yeah, some sort of energy signature or some sort of anomalous scan of you that when you go in, it makes a buzzing, but it's not audible to you. It's only audible to electronic devices. Or maybe it's an anomalous sound that it's there, it's present when you go through, but because it's anomalous, you can't hear it, and you need a mechanical device to hear it. That's my theory. That's my theory with that.
shallow scratches could be seen in the wall, the floor, and parts of the ceiling. Suddenly, D7 ducked into a hiding place alarmed. He and the other two operatives listening to his audio feed could hear heavy breathing, and it didn't belong to D7. Dr. L recommended that D7 evacuate the building at this sign of another entity inside, but T11 overruled, ordering him to disregard that instruction and continue his investigation. D7 was told to stay at a safe distance from whatever was inside with him, and attempt to capture it on video. D7 turned off his flashlight in order to better hide, but T11 commanded that he turn it back on. Whatever was caught in the beam of light was difficult for the camera to see, but it threw D7 into a panic, and he began to run in the opposite direction. When prompted to explain what he saw, D7 simply said, "It was me." D7 ran through the dark, panting with fear and exertion. Unable to see where his feet were landing, he tripped over something and came crashing onto the ground, dropping the video camera. This allowed the observing officers to finally see what D7 was so frightened by, and it became clear just why D7 was so terrified. A man, identical looking to D7, approached from the end of the hallway, making its way towards the real D7. It was followed by another man who also resembled D7 and another, all running toward the original. They all looked exactly like him, with a few notable differences. They were dressed in the same uniform, with the same build and the same features, but each had something slightly off about him. One was missing eyelids, another had malformed hands, and the third had its lips fused together into a fleshy mass beneath its nose. Dr. L moved to cut the camera feed, but T11 demanded that it be kept running.
Damn real, keep it running.
By the camera, but the microphone picked up the sounds of flesh and cloth being torn, along with pained, panicked screams as the duplicates set upon him. After a moment, the screaming stopped. 2 hours later,
yeah, mute that shit. Click.
The expedition brought to a troubling end. This was the Foundation's first glimpse at the creatures inside of SCP-1919. It was not pretty. It did, however, allow them to begin understanding the nature of the building and what happens when a person goes inside. It appears that when a human enters the hotel, several humanoid creatures manifest throughout the building. These creatures look like the subject and are equipped with the same clothing or items that the subject brought inside with them. Though they are nearly mirror images of the subject, they are always slightly warped in a variety of ways. These have included changes to limb and digit length, joint mobility, sealed nostrils, lengthened jaws hanging loose and limp, missing eyelids, and lips that are fused together. These creatures are highly aggressive towards the structure of the building itself, as well as to the subject that they resemble. They do not, however, attack each other. They appear to operate with a hive mind, exhibiting swarm intelligence like that of an ant colony. Once they have been spawned by the entrance of a new person, they will not stop until said person either escapes the building or is killed. After the unfortunate end to the expedition, the Foundation prepped for a second trip inside. This time, 3 men were sent in with Dr. L's guidance, known as D3, D4, and D9. Video cameras were sewn into their clothes to leave their hands free and help avoid some of the issues that came up during the first expedition. This small team was sent in with the orders to terminate the remaining copies of D7 and further examine the hotel's interior. Upon opening the door to the building, they were immediately attacked by one of D7's copies, which D9 was able to quickly dispatch by firing his weapon at its head. Next, after a great deal of reluctance,
they can be shot to
3
death.
men
Perfect.
entered the building, where they spotted something unusual inside.
Copies of
Dr. L
themselves.
was horrified when the camera feed revealed 17 discarded video cameras spread across the floor. They didn't have much time to react to this new discovery, however, because 2 doubles, one mirroring D7 and another mirroring D9, emerged from the wall and began to attack. Dr. L ordered the
And now they have guns.
and called the team of guards outside of the hotel's perimeter. They were ordered to begin an immediate full perimeter lockdown, preventing the doubles from leaving the hotel. D3, D4, and D9 attempted to make their way to a safe corner of the building, but found themselves met with a murderous double at every turn. At this point, Dr. L began to hear an unusual sound over the microphone feed, a high-pitched whine like that of a dentist drill. The operatives on the ground couldn't hear a thing, but on Dr. L's end, it was deafening. As the
Like I said, it's an anomalous sound. You can't hear it with your bare ears. You can only hear it through electronic means. I think that's what's causing the copies to be made. That sound seems to be some sort of scanning, anomalous scanning of the subjects that go into that place. So that's what I think it is. But through the electronics, because it's not a living being or something, you know, it has something to do with it being inorganic, you know, and that it's a machine. It's able to pick it up.
team proceeded deeper into the hotel, they became overcome with a strange feeling of foreboding. Dr. L
Yeah,
ordered them to turn
y'all
on
about to die.
flashlights.
That's
They
that's
refused
why.
and begged Dr. L to keep quiet. When prompted to explain, D9 said, "She can hear you." The operatives stopped
She?
responding, but their camera feeds caught a faint, glowing white light coming from beneath a door. The door opened, and the light flooded the camera, making the images it captured hard to decipher. Just a few frames of a quick-moving female silhouette were captured before the cameras cut to static. The bodies of D3, D4, and D9 were never recovered, nor were their cameras. A third expedition was also sent into SCP-1919, but very little is known about what occurred during it. The video transcript is highly classified, and only those present for its events or approved to research SCP-1919 have access to it. An update to the SCP-1919 file following Expedition 3, though, indicates that new information was revealed about the hotel during the excursion. According to the file update, there is some kind of being at the center of the location, which is causing all of the other creatures, the doubles, to appear. The only information available about this being is the use of the word her
It's a female.
in the official Foundation log about SCP-1919. This seems to match up with the last moments of the operatives in Expedition 2, when they told Dr. L that she can hear you.
Maybe it may have something to do with the history of that place. If they could find out, a little bit more about that place, like when it was built and when it was decommissioned, when the hotel was decommissioned, maybe they could find out who stayed there, what was going on. Usually that's a good indicator and a good way of figuring out what the anomaly is. It could be a paranormal, spiritual phenomena, or it could just be, it could be a spiritual paranormal phenomena, or it could be a natural paranormal phenomena. Those things do happen. So, just got to figure it out and check out the history of that place.
And the few frames of a female figure that were captured by their cameras. Nothing else is known that has been made available to anyone outside a very select few. Only the original report exists, and all other copies of it have been destroyed. The Foundation has undertaken special containment procedures to make sure that none of the entities from inside the hotel escape, whether they are the evil twins spawned by humans entering the building, or the mysterious female being at the center of the entire
Well, how the fuck are we gonna stop her?
The Foundation has classified SCP-1919 as
Euclid,
and a 2-kilometer radius must be maintained around SCP-1919, with all roads leading to the building are blocked or diverted, so that no vehicles are able to reach it. This perimeter is guarded by a set of at least 40 armed and armored guards at any given time, as it has been determined that the doubles spawned by 1919 are equipped with whatever the human they are copying has. No one is allowed to enter the hotel with body armor or weapons of any kind. Anyone that approaches the perimeter that is not a part of an official expedition team will be immediately terminated. No new expedition teams are allowed to enter the building unless all doubles from the previous expedition have been
exterminated. Yeah, makes sense.
They cannot be exterminated.
You don't want to be overwhelmed.
Time must elapse between expeditions that the previous doubles have starved to death. Though they do not seem to feel hunger, the doubles do need to eat to survive, and will die when left alone for long enough. SCP-1919 has been sealed off from the rest of the world, so that no hapless civilians can wander inside and find themselves torn to pieces by warped images of themselves. That comfort turns cold when you realize that the SCP Foundation still does not understand what causes these doubles to spawn. Is it scientific, supernatural, or something else?
Just like I'm saying.
No one can be certain. Even more inexplicable is the entity at the center of all of this. An unknown female presence capable of wreaking frightening amounts of violence by turning victims' own images against them. What is the purpose of these funhouse mirror nightmares? Who is she? What is she? And what does she want? Currently, the doubles have shown no...
Once again, like I said, figure out the origins of that hotel. When it was built. Hells, go back before when it was built. Go back to the land. Who owned the land? Who owns the land now? You know what I'm saying? go back to, if you can, go back and talk to Native Americans who lived on like, what's going on? Does the land have something to do with it? Or is it contained to the hotel, to the structure? You know, what was it built with? I mean, like, you're going to have to go through decades, decades, maybe even centuries of information on that one area. And the SCP Foundation has the resources for that. And they usually do stuff like that. I mean, like, you're going to have to figure that out, man. They're going to have to figure that out. Big time.
Interest in leaving the hotel except to attack intruders. And thanks to that fact, as well as the reinforced perimeter outside, these copycats have not appeared outside of the building itself. But what happens if they do escape? Or if the entity that controls them decides to make her home elsewhere? There is no telling what could happen if this dark power is allowed to move beyond its current containment. Are you prepared to fight a vision of yourself, twisted almost beyond recognition, lunging after you with wide bulbous eyes, unnaturally long arms, and a distended jaw hanging down below its neck? I hope you never have to find out. Now go check out SCP-001, the Children Ouroboros Cycle.
Yeah. Definitely don't want to fight that thing. Oof. That is just weird, man. Weird and freaky. But, yeah. Oof. I don't know, man. That's fighting a doppelganger of yourself, but it's not quite a doppelganger of yourself. It's some sort of. Oof. You see that? One of those things had like a mandible jaw type thing, pincers and shit. God, that's freaky. Anyways, that was SCP-1919, Hotel of Duplicates, by the SCP Animation YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description down below. Until then, stay tuned for another episode. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Raven's Haven.